On that game against Fulham, massive defeat, terrible performance from Spurs. Do you feel like in that game that Ange-Ball got exposed?
That's a big question. It's a very big question. I think it got exposed in a different way. You know, people talking about our high line, but the way Fulham were whipping in crosses from so deep, I don't think a team's done that as of yet, and it really caught our fullbacks and defenders off guard, especially Dragusin, who I felt sorry for him because he was sort of thrown in at the deep end. You know, he's not a left footer on that left side, and I saw certain Tottenham fans, you know, chucking a bit of blame at him, but I think that's personally a bit harsh. But exposed, I mean, it's sort of the stick to hit Tottenham with when we are, you know, it's like when we lost to Fulham 4-2. It is a easy stick to hit us with. But as I keep saying on my own channel, and you guys similarly, I think I've heard you say, like, it's a process. We're still going through it. The fact that these players are able to play this style of football so early on, you know, the fullbacks inverting so well, so early in Ange Postecoglou's tenure, I don't think we've been exposed as of yet, but, you know, it's a little bump in the road. I still see us, you know, finishing the end of the season strongly.
Yeah, and I think, like, to say, like, Ange-Ball is exposed, you'd expect, like, maybe to get bad week in, week out. I know it's only been one game since we're saying maybe Ange-Ball was potentially exposed. Me personally, I don't think it was exposed. I think that a lot of players just had very poor performances on the day, which culminated in just a terrible performance from top to bottom. Do you think it was exposed, Sim?
I think Marco Silva out-tacticked Ange on the day, 100%. I think he noticed the flaws in the system and he brutally exploited them. So I think from that perspective, the tactics were found to be vulnerable, I would say, in that particular performance. And I think, look, each game has its own difficulties and each team has its own strengths, and Fulham came with a game plan to ruthlessly exploit the fullbacks, to get Castagna and Robinson involved as much as possible, to have João Paulinho completely dominate in that centre. And I think it worked a treat. I don't think it was just I mean, look, everyone did have a bad game. I don't think it's a surprise to say that no one really came off that game with any credit. But I think you have to give credit to Fulham, who I think came in with a game plan and it worked to perfection. And I think we really struggled to deal with their fullbacks getting into the forward positions. They were constantly overlapping, getting into the penalty area. Our wingers weren't tracking their runners, causing overloads in those wide areas. And I think Marco Silva came with a plan to exploit our weakest areas, and that did come to fruition. Apart from Van de Ven, we didn't have too many excuses when it comes to team selection and things like that. I actually thought Dragusin in the first half anyway had a pretty good game, and then obviously we lost the goal and he started to struggle a bit. But I don't think it was like down to him or anything. We can't put it down to team selection. Even look at the bench. We had a good bench on the day. We had many options to come off the bench. So I think on the day we were outdone tactically. I don't think it was just an off day. I think tactically we were outdone on the day. That's not to say that is going to be the case going forward, but I do think Marco Silva did a job on us, and you have to give him credit.
But, you know, you talk about players on the wing not tracking their runners, the fullbacks. You talk about maybe the midfield no-showers, particularly when Fulham were on the ball. There was just that gaping hole in the middle, wasn't there? Basuma was nowhere to be seen. Sarr was nowhere to be seen. Maddison was nowhere to be seen. Is that the tactics getting exposed, or is that players not doing their job within the tactics?
I mean, look, when a player misplaces a pass, you could say, yeah, that's a player error. But then if he has no options, that's a tactical error. You know what I mean? So you'd have to properly sit down and analyse why those things were happening.
But players not tracking their runners as well?
I don't know. It depends. You have to look exactly what the situations were. I remember for the second goal, what happened was Iwobi's on the right-hand side. He beats Udogie, and Brennan Johnson had actually got back in position, but because Iwobi got past Udogie, Brennan Johnson then goes over to Iwobi, leaving Castagna completely free, and obviously he gets an on goal, and he sets up the second goal. So, I mean, that was partly tactical, partly player issue. I mean, it's a case of both. I do think I lean towards probably on the day. It was probably more player issue, but I do think there were serious tactical issues as well, which got absolutely exposed.
How do you see it, Sonny? Before we bring Brains in, I'm not sure if he's with us or not, but what do you think, Sonny? Do you think it was more player issue on the day of an underperformance, or do you think it was more of a tactical issue?
I think that's where, for Tottenham fans to say it was a player issue, it feels quite tough to bring ourselves to say it, because these players have performed outstandingly, and for a lot of those players like Maddison and Son to just not turn up. And, you know, Jamie Redknapp saying did they have a bit of cockiness? I'm not so sure about that. I feel like Ange Postecoglou isn't breeding a cocky team. They're not all like prima donnas. But, I mean, I suggested on my own channel, I said, like, was it a mixture of a Marco Silva masterclass and us being rubbish? And someone dismissed it. But I believe you can have both things at the same time.
Yeah.
Maybe we turned up thinking, you know, after that Villa result, what a dominant second half that was. Maybe we turned up with a bit of an air of arrogance, not saying we were cocky, but as if to say, we can come to Fulham and get a result. But we've seen Fulham, they've beaten Arsenal, they've put 5 against West Ham. I think they beat another team 5-0 this season as well. They're not, they've got some really good quality players there. Leno, Iwobi, you named a few. But yeah, I feel like it was a mixture of just sometimes Ange has probably got to make those small tweaks. We saw with Vicario the issue of, him getting bullied for set pieces earlier on in the season, and then Ange learnt to put a man in between. It seems quite simple, but again, I think this issue of stopping these early crosses, Pedro Porro has had an amazing season, but should he stop that first cross? I think so. He's got to get a bit tighter in that situation. Just small things, but as I said in my previous answer, it's all about, we're on a long journey here, hopefully, with Ange. That's why I'm wearing my new Ange t-shirt today. I back this manager, and I'm hopeful we can sort these things out, and hopefully against Luton, we stop the likes of Doherty doing those crosses.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to bring Brains in, but it looks like he's gone again. Brains, can you hear us?
Is he still there when the camera goes off? The audio's still there. So.
Yeah, it's just the camera going off, but I've not cut from the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Just, I don't know.
We'll just keep. If your camera goes off, just keep talking, because we'll still get you on the audio. So I don't know if you've heard part of the conversation. We're just talking about if Ange has been exposed, or Ange tactics were exposed in that Fulham game. I kind of lean towards the side that it was a player issue more than it was a tactical issue in terms of on the day. What side are you more leaning towards?
I think it's less about Ange-Ball being exposed, but more of that's the point of football. Like when someone comes with a great tactic, every single opposition studies it. They have a technical room. They break it down. Like when Ange joined and we started seeing like the kind of fruition of it at the start, and everyone was talking about what Ange will bring to the Prem, like how Spurs will play and how this could be beneficial. All these influencers going waxing lyrical on the benefits of it, also doing breakdowns of how the team will shape up. That was just us getting all excited as well about it. But then it actually starts, and then 4, 5, 6 games, and it's working exactly like that. That's influencers talking about it. Can you imagine the opposition's technical rooms going, this is how you defend it, this is how you, so they've just, it's not so much it's been exposed, but the book is, I'll continue, my camera's off, but the book has been written on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
So then with every single bit of tactic, it's not that Ange has to change the tactic, but it is a little bit of adaptation. Like if teams now, and it's interesting to see the teams that we've dropped points to are all 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. So we're not having any problems against teams who are going to come at us. We're having problems against teams who go, you know what they're going to do? We're going to set and we're going to close. They're just going to try to get to the byline. Kulusevski's going to cut in all the time. It's everything has just become very early formulaic, and I can understand why Ange won't just change from that. because he's trying to drill in the idea of it. So the idea of it has to be like the team has to buy in. You can't just all of a sudden start going, you know what, avoid it, drop deep. Do you know what I mean? Because then they'll just never believe in an idea. And they're young players, so they have to get the idea drilled in. And they also have to lose and realize that the idea isn't wrong. You just have to do the idea right. You know, so because they're young and inconsistent, 20 odd games in a season, Doggy's not going to he's going to have a game where he's not going to fall back after. He's going to start believing, well, actually, my benefit is if I drive forward. So it's more about the kind of complacency of young players going, like we loved this for 10 games, but Jesus, it's hard. Gee, my hamstrings can't take it. Every game, go, go, go. Like, so even the players start to break away at their kind of like the necessity of them believing in a tactic. So this is where Ange's job then becomes, well, I've got to get the belief right. I've got to get the right players in to constantly be able to do it. The other problems that he's dealing with, not having wingers who actually do the tactic, a midfield who get caught in who's the pivot, there's a lot of problems there, but I don't think it's a case of just a simple, washing over a problem with it's been exposed. It's not as simple as that. It is, you have to, like, there's an adaptation that has to come. Every team's adapting to us. We now have to adapt to how we play the middle of the league teams. It's like Harry Kane. Yeah. Harry Kane, remember, Harry Kane was like killing it, and then all of a sudden he went, okay, two defenders, one midfielder is going to drop and take the front side of Harry, the defender's going to take the back side, and then Harry just went, I'm going to go deeper, and everyone hated it, but Harry had to adapt, because every manager is going to go, no, you stay there, but Harry had to adapt, but managers don't want to break from a tactic that they know is fruitful just because a player is going, I'm not getting the ball though,
Yeah, and it's not just, with Harry Kane, if you want to put it towards a team level. I know it's a completely different level to what we're doing right now, but you just look at Man City and the way Pep Guardiola adapts his tactics year on year. Every single year you see different tweaks and different avenues for the way Pep Guardiola sets up his team to kind of keep the opponents second guessing. Do you feel like that's something Ange Postecoglou needs to kind of look at and recognise?
Yeah, but I feel like Pep first of all, he started doing that once he got the most out of the way he is initially started playing. So I think they got the Centurions. They won I think 2 titles in a row. Then teams started a bit not figuring them out, but obviously they dropped the title to Liverpool, and they weren't as good that season. Then he started really adjusting and giving little tactical tweaks. Now it seems year on year he's given little tactical tweaks, but this is a manager who's had time, who's at the top of his game, who really drilled into the squad that he had a real set way of playing and had perfected that way of playing. And then once they had perfected it, then they started making tweaks. I don't think you can start making tweaks before you've perfected the system. And that's why I think where Ange is at. I think Ange is saying, look, there's going to be some bumps in the road, but we got to perfect this way of playing. And then once it's perfected and it's very difficult to stop, then once team are starting to adjust for you and they're making tweaks, then you can make tweaks in counteract to that. And once you've perfected it, but you first of all, you've got to make yourself really, really hard to play against before you start tweaking it, because you've got to see where the limits or where this way of playing is going to take you before you start tweaking it, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, why would you? Yes, we're hitting bumps to the road, but I don't feel like we're anywhere near seen the best of what this team can do with this way of playing. So why tweak before you've seen the very best? And I don't think Ange has seen the best yet. But with Pep, he had seen the best of what that way of playing can do, and now he has to change things. So
and on top of that, you need the right personnel to see the best way it can take you, which,
of course,
I don't think we've got the perfect wingers for an Ange Postecoglou system, and you need the right kind of squad players as well. We got no one to back up Destiny Udogie, hardly anyone to back up Pedro Porro. We've just bought in Dragusin in January. He's had 1 start to his Spurs campaign. So, Sonny, are you of a similar thinking?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's almost like, and I think the good point about that is we're going to learn a lot from these losses. I think most Tottenham fans would have seen Kulusevski's players Tribune article, and he said how much they learnt from the manic Chelsea result earlier in the season. So I feel like this season was about implementing that tactic, seeing a better style and a more attacking style of football, which we've got, competing, which we have, and improving the morale around the club, which has happened. Lots of the negative energy and the toxicity has gone. But yeah, I feel like I agree with Sim. We haven't really seen Ange-Ball at full flow. We haven't seen like a pure 90 minutes of control. It's all has been situations where it has been a bit bitty. We played a game with 4 fullbacks against Manchester City and we got a result against them. I think people sometimes have short-term memory when it comes to certain things that we're seeing, and that's why, people might call me a happy clapper. I'm still quite positive about what I'm seeing. And if you compare to the Mikel Arteta first season, the Jurgen Klopp season, we are ahead of them technically. I know they won an FA Cup, Arsenal. Klopp got to a Europa League final and I think the Carabao Cup final that year as well. But Ange is still implementing stuff that ahead of schedule. It is ahead of schedule. We have to say that. And yeah, I'm just happy with it. And there is tweaks. This team isn't finished. You look at the bench. There's still some areas. A lot of deadwood. We got rid of Dyer. We got rid of Lloris. We've still got to get rid of Højbjerg and Lo Celso and Ndombele and players like that. It's not done. I feel like the result of the weekend. There's been a lot of reactionary stuff about it, and I feel like we've just got to keep our cool, back this manager, and hopefully Levy puts his hand in his pocket again in the summer.
Yeah, sorry, I wouldn't be mentioning selling Ndombele over here with Ndombele's #1 fan sitting next to me, but